Hi guys, I just wanted to give a quick video going through the slides that I went over during our Collaborate session today in case you couldn't hear me or had technical issues during the session. So these were the slides we went through. So we're talking about life science. So again, young children are fascinated by living things they encounter around them. Life science for young children is about maintaining that fascination through observing of plants and animals, insects, and even including themselves. Because if we think about life science, talking about their growth and development is part of life science as well. Children are very curious, as you learned last week whenever you read your first two chapters in your textbook, all about that idea of inquiry. So we want to continue to support that idea of inquiry when we are supporting this content area of life science. And so we are getting children to think about living things, what they look like, how they live, how they change. As children engage in life science, we want them to use their senses, different tools, measuring tools, magnifying glasses, and even using notepads to record the different observations that they are making and to write down things that they are discovering as they are making connections in their world. We want to make sure that children are able to share their observations. We want them to think about what they've seen. They're going to start to sort and categorize things, classify things, look for patterns, and raise questions about the living things that they are learning to know about. And those concepts in math that we learned about, classifying, sorting, collecting data, all of those things are going to carry over into this world of science as well. A good life science program, when it's developmentally appropriate, provides children with ongoing opportunities to observe living things in their environment and begin to appreciate the diversity and variation of organisms that exist. And so you're going to be talking about things like insects and the variation between different types of insects, but also the commonalities that insects have as well. Looking at birds, how there's lots of different types of birds, animals, plants, different things like that. So there's a lot of variation among the different things that you're going to be studying, things that are the same but also different. And so you want to be able to make those observations and have conversations and discoveries about that as well to help give them some foundational information about that. Life science allows children to develop their ideas about the characteristics of living things, including their basic needs, life cycles, and their dependence on one another and the environment. So some of the things that you're going to be looking at whenever you look at life science for young children, physical characteristics of living things, so talking about all the attributes of what living things have, the different characteristics of plants, flowers, trees, animals, insects, worms themselves. So all of those things are going to be types of concepts that you're going to be exploring in life science. You're going to be talking about the basic needs of living things. What do they need to live and grow and thrive? So those things you're going to be talking about as well. You're also going to be talking about simple behaviors. How do the animals behave? How do birds behave? Why do they behave this way? Why do trees need light? Why are the leaves green now, but they're not? But they turn different colors in the fall. So different things like that. You're going to be talking about life cycles. Think about the butterfly. It starts as a caterpillar. It eats lots and lots of food. It gets nice and big and fat. Then it forms a chrysalis. And when it comes out of the chrysalis, it's no longer a caterpillar, but a beautiful butterfly. So looking at different life cycles and what takes place in the life cycle. The life cycle of a plant. You plant the seed and then it sprouts into a plant. Talking about that and the process of that. So you're going to be talking about that. Again, that variation and diversity, looking at different types of flowers, different types of birds, different types of insects, talking about what is the same. Again, all insects have 6 legs, they have antennae, they have 3 segments to their bodies, but again, they look, a bee looks very different than a ladybug and a butterfly. So looking at that variation and diversity among the different species. You're going to talk about relationships between living things and their environment. Again, what things in our environment are helping us to live and grow and thrive. that give us our basic needs. What does the environment do? How does it protect us, support us? Why are we dependent on it? So having conversations about that when you're talking about different species and things. And then again, talking about people. Again, we are living things. And so even having conversations about what our needs are, what are our characteristics, what is our life cycle, how do we behave, how are we all different? So those things too should be brought in and compared when we're talking about life science for young children. One thing I wanted to point out and that I talked about during our session today was that if you're looking to incorporate some live specimens in your classroom to have children get some, up close experience with them, pet stores are a wonderful place to start. You can even have a class pet if you want to invest your time and energy into one of those. A fish or hermit crabs are fairly easy and low maintenance. Again, if you want to have something else, I know some of you may have experience with hamsters or guinea pigs or things like that. I would check with the health department in your program to make sure that you can have pets like that. And then really just do your research on what it takes to care for a pet. Because sometimes, when you're not at school all the time, you're not there on the weekends. And so you want to make sure that you have something that you don't have to constantly be caring for or having someone else care for as well. Some things that you could study: earthworms, mealworms, crickets, beetles. You can get all those things in a pet store. One of the slides is videos, but it's actually one of the articles talks about how mealworms kind of follow a metamorphosis process like a butterfly does, how they hatch into beetles and they form, a little bit of a shell, kind of like the butterfly forms a chrysalis. But you can actually have children handle mealworms, and they're a little bit more hardy because they can be handled and they're not going to die. Or so you can do that. Observing butterflies is very valuable too in that metamorphosis process, but that's something that they're going to have to observe, and they can't actually handle the caterpillars because they are fragile. Another thing you can do is go to some online stores. I have a couple links here of some stores that are really good to get insects. You can get live ladybugs, you can get caterpillars, you can get tadpoles, you can get ants. So there's a lot of different things that you could bring into your classrooms. You can get worms. So a lot of different things that you can actually purchase to bring into your classroom to give children those actual live experiences with those creatures and have them explore them and their behaviors and their habitats and give them a chance to care for them and watch what they go through in their life cycles. Again, when you are talking about creatures and life cycles, you are going to want to talk about that. So if you're talking about butterflies, talk about the life cycle, talk about all those different stages that they're going through, introduce them to the vocabulary within that. If you're talking about plants, talk about the life cycle of the plant and what happens in each of those different stages, because again, they're going to be observing those. So again, talking about those stages at each part that the plant is going through that, or each part that the butterfly might be going through that, and talk about that. Play games, have them put the different parts of the life cycle in order so that they can start to understand that and internalize that. There's lots of music and books and finger plays and probably dances that you can do to help children to, physically engage and interpret or internalize those different concepts. Again, what do they need to live? So again, as you're talking about different animals and insects and creatures, you're going to need to talk about what they need to live. Again, what does a caterpillar need to live, to grow, to form its chrysalis, to turn into the butterfly? And then once it's a butterfly, what does it eat? And it's different. How does it eat differently? So all of those are just wonderfully rich conversations that you can have with young children. Again, if you're talking about plants and flowers, what do they need to grow and live? So again, talking about the needs of that is going to be a very natural discussion that you're having. Within any exploration, introducing vocabulary is going to be key. Again, this would be vocabulary that you would introduce for a study on butterflies, eggs, caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. That word chrysalis is a big word, but preschoolers love to say it, and if you teach it to them, they will know that. They will know that caterpillars form a chrysalis and not a cocoon before they turn into a butterfly. Moths form a cocoon, but butterflies form a chrysalis, and that's something that you can teach them and they will internalize and they will remember, and they can teach it to their parents as well. Again, if you're looking, thinking about just a study of a butterfly, looking at the different parts of the butterfly, teaching that vocabulary as well. I remember teaching my 3-year-olds the different parts of an insect and different parts of the butterfly and how they internalize that. They could say antenna, they could say proboscis, they could say thorax and abdomen. So all those big words that you think, well, these might be too hard for young children, but they're not. If you teach them, if you engage them in a way that helps them to understand and make it real and connect it to their experiences, they will be able to learn that as well. Again, one thing that you're going to want to do if you are doing stuff, especially with a life cycle that takes time to observe and see what happens and the changes aren't happening overnight, you're going to want to document that. So if you give them some sort of a journal to document on a day-to-day basis, drawing pictures or writing down what's going on depending on where they're at in their development. You can even do a classroom journal that you do together and you go back and look at what's happening. You can even take pictures on a daily basis and look at those pictures and talk about what's happening from each day and look at the different changes, because a lot of these are going to take time. Again, a plant, for example, you're going to plant the seed and it's going to stay in the dirt for a while before they're going to start to see something green. Hopefully that green comes. So again, having those journals to see, well, how many days did it take before our seed sprouted into a plant? And then how many more days did it take before our sprout turned into a flower and we actually saw flower petals? So again, looking at that, talking about the time that it takes. So you're going to need to represent that knowledge somewhere, to go back and look at it and to look at that data. Again, that's where that data collection comes in. But again, one of the most important things is time. Again, it takes time to watch a caterpillar change into a butterfly. It takes time to watch a seed sprout into a plant. So helping children to understand that some things that happen in science aren't immediate and allows them to observe and experience things over a matter of days and weeks. We need to be patient when we're watching these things, and that's something that we need to help children to understand as well. But again, not everything is a long or a life cycle investigation. Simple, everyday things that you can do and engage them in. Go on a nature walk and observe things like trees, flowers, grass, insects, animals, birds, the children. Dig in the dirt and look for worms on your playground. Talk about the characteristics of living things, what they look like, how they live, what they need to live, what sounds they make, what they smell like. Engage their senses. Nature is amazing to engage senses. Smell flowers, listen to the birds, taste the fruits and vegetables that you've planted, touch the bark of a tree, feel a worm wiggle in your fingers, look at trees and flowers as they move in the wind. Sensory experiences are amazing for children to learn and make connections, and so having those and talking about those sensory experiences is so important and so rich. Take a camera outside, take pictures of what you're seeing outside, taking pictures of different things that are growing and living outside and discuss those. Taking clipboards outside and paper so children can draw what they observe. And even having magnifying glasses and other tools so children can get a closer look at nature is so important. Again, literature. There's so many great books out there that help children discover more about life science. Do your research and find books to help to add to your curriculum. Again, if you don't know everything about a study that you're doing, books are a great way to educate yourself so that you have your education correct, so that when you introduce a concept to your students that you know that you've got the facts. And then they're just a great way to introduce a topic and continue to answer questions and address various concepts throughout your study. You don't have to know everything about what you're introducing the children to, but have a good foundational knowledge of it and then learn along with the kids as you go. It's wonderful. And then just remember to support student interest as much as possible in your science investigations. Spring is just a natural time when children become curious about the outdoor world. The trees are budding, flowers are blooming, planting gardens is possible, grass is getting green, insects are coming out, birds are out singing and laying eggs. Take advantage of the seasons in the natural world to support and encourage the exploration of life science. And help your students develop an appreciation of nature and living things. Science is just an amazing thing to introduce our students to, and don't be anxious about it. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers. Just be willing to engage them. Make sure that you're supporting that aspect of inquiry and wonder, allowing them to be curious, allowing them to ask questions and just make connections about their world and all that is part of it. So that's all I have for now, guys. If you have any questions, as always, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.